Okay, one question that I got was, how do I plan on powering multiple LEDs with one Arduino pin? So what I've done here is I've set up an auxiliary board just to show how this is done. Each of these LEDs has a dropping resistor, and the dropping resistor is actually going to plus 5 volts instead of minus 5 volts, and in the chip these will actually be going to plus 12 volts because I'll be running LED strips that are designed for 12 volts. So we've got dropping resistors, we've got a positive power, just plain 5 volts coming in, and then instead of having ground down here, I use the ground up here just to make it a little bit easier to wire the circuit, and I brought the plus 5 volts down here so that all of these LEDs could have their resistors near them. And then I bring in one pin. This is the warp nacelle pin from the Mega over onto this side board. We have a 1K biasing resistor, and then we have the magic that makes this all possible. This is a transistor. Now, all of the digital circuits that are involved in computers are all based on a simple transistor, and there's more complex ones now that are being used, but basically anything that you can do inside of a computer can and has been done using transistors. Now, this is a single transistor, whereas the CPU in the Arduino has millions of transistors. This single transistor is called a 2N2222. Lots of twos. This 2N22 will take, and it's basically a switch. When I turn on this lead on the Arduino, it tells this transistor that it can pass the power coming in, the main power coming into this, to these LEDs, and it can have a lot more current going through it. As you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 LEDs running off of this one pin, proving that obviously the Arduino cannot run that many LEDs off of a single pin, but I can turn it on and turn it off with the Arduino. So when I power up the warp engine, we'll go from green to blue. We'll get a flash, but for some reason the flash is not coming out very bright. I've tried switching the LEDs around, and I think I might have something wrong with this particular resistor. So we'll get this switch from green to this white one, which is representing the blue of the deflector dish. And then all of these come on, and we get a flash here. So here's the ramp, and then all of these come on, and there was a slight flash here. So I'll have to debug and find out why this slight flash isn't coming on, but you can see that with one 2N22 we can convert a single, I think I have a short somewhere in here, you can take a single Arduino control line and control multiple LEDs. Okay, so the other thing that I've been working on is trying to figure out how I was going to control the circuit. I picked up this Android tablet for, I think it was about 50 bucks. It's really cheap. It works. There is some power in it, and it is running Android. The problem is it's running Android 2.2.1, and the only library I could find that would allow me to use the USB port as a serial interface to talk to the Arduino requires Android 3.1, so this can't run that code. The other option was to use Bluetooth, and this tablet does not have Bluetooth. So this tablet just became not the right solution. So what I decided to do is I am going to have this internet enabled. I'm going to use what they call an Ethernet shield, and I'm going to write a web server. The web server will show up a page that will have an LCARS interface, and that LCARS interface will control all of the lighting circuits. I get two things out of that. It does not have to be an Android tablet anymore. I can control it from my iPhone or an iPad or a Windows computer or a Mac or Linux, anything. I may even connect it up so that it's controllable from the internet with a webcam, so you guys will be able to play with firing the photon torpedoes and turning on the warp engines yourself. I'm not entirely sure, but that would be kind of fun. At least for a little while. So I've decided that that's the way I'm going to go for controlling it. I am going to make a modified version that will run off of switches. For those that don't have internet networking in their house and don't want to deal with all of the intricacies that are involved with that, and still want to use my code. And the serial interface that I'm using now will still work. So I have a lot of work to do on the programming side to get this done. I have already taken the sample program for writing the web service and have it turn on and off an LED. The next part is to port the rest of the flashing code over to the Ethernet code and move some stuff around. The Ethernet shield that connects up to the Arduino uses some of the pins that I was using for lighting. So I need to reassign those pins to other pins that the Ethernet shield is not using. The copy of the Ethernet shield that I have does not have easy sockets for wiring it up in prototype mode, so I may be ordering a different one. Now, this brings the total, which I haven't talked about the cost yet. An Arduino Mega, which is what I'm using as the main processor, is about $55 by itself. The Ethernet board on top of that is another $50 unless you get a really cheap one, and they go down as low as $19, but at $19 you have to have another web server around to be able to serve any graphic content because there's just not enough room. If you go up to the $50 unit, it will take a memory card and you'll be able to have a big website that does all kinds of fancy stuff nice and easy. Right now I have the cheap one, and the cheap one that I got at Radio Shack doesn't have the headers to be able to do prototyping. However, it does have solder pads, so as a solution long term, it's probably a better choice. On top of that, you have power supplies. A regular wall wart isn't going to work for this. I need both 12 volts and 5 volts. So I have ordered on a website called DXextreme.com. DX.com. I've ordered a 12 volt regulated power supply and a 5 volt regulated 5 volt voltage regulator that will drop the 12 volts down to 5 volts. 5 volts is for the Arduino, 12 volts is for the larger lighting circuits. The LED tape all runs on 12 volts. So between those two and all of the parts, I'm already exceeded the cost of just buying the Tenna Controls circuits and doing it that way. So, like I said, this is not any way, shape, or form going to compete with what they're doing just because I give it away. People still have to buy all this stuff, and they have to understand how it works. For those that are interested in doing that, that's why I am providing the full source and letting you know how I'm doing everything. So that's it for today. Next time we're going to talk about how we're going to do the Shields Up display, and I'm going to be using these SparkFun rectifier register breakout shift registers. That's what it is, shift registers. Sorry, the the flashlight on my on my camera is blinding me as I look at you, so I couldn't read it. These are cascadable shift registers, so I'll be able to talk with 2 wires into these and have these translate that to the full 48 that I need for all of the lights in the Shields Up display. That's it for today. We'll talk to you next time.